Buenas noches. Vamos a empezar. Un recordatorio. Bienvenidos a todos. Solo recordarles que el idioma principal de esta reunión es español, con interpretación en inglés. Sin embargo, algunos de nuestros presentadores hablarán inglés, así que hay que centrarnos que todos tengamos un aparato, unos audífonos para traducir. Y otro recordatorio. Cuando hables en el micrófono, por favor, habla despacio. Pon atención a Jennifer, porque ella está... A Kelly, perdón, a Kelly. Él te recordará si estás hablando muy rápido o muy despacito. Despacio, claro y fuerte. Okay. Algo que no que nos quisiera recordar es que...
Another thing I wanted to remind you of that today has been a year from the first meeting, and we were very happy here to be together again. And so congratulations to everyone to be here with us for a whole year, and hopefully we'll be here for many years to come. Perhaps other people will come after us. And another announcement. And Jorge Sanchez, he's part of a organization that represents, he represents the organization ALAS and farm workers in the community of Half Moon Bay. And my apologies, her audio is not great. I'm having a difficulty understanding. I apologize. And now we're celebrating a year. We have a representative from the district, Marisol. Is there something that you would like to add? Good evening. Can you hear me? Okay, good evening, everyone. So I just wanted to congratulate you as well, you who have been members of this commission. And on behalf of the supervisor who wasn't able to be here today, from the Board of Supervisors, they've prepared a certification, a resolution written specially for you all, for the work that you've done in this commission, for all of you. So I'll ask Judith to come to the front, come forward and receive it. This commission started with the help of Supervisor Van Hersley and it was established to promote ideas and leadership, as well as education needs for farm workers in the county of San Mateo. So congratulations for all of the time that you have given in the commission, and we hope that you continue with the same enthusiasm, and we will continue to support in everything you do. Congratulations. Thank you again. So I'll pass that around so you can take a look at it. So it's 7:06. We'll get started. First of all, I would like to thank Victor for the interpreting services. Without them, we would not be able to understand each other. We would like to thank you. Please make sure you speak closely to the mics because we're working with the new system. Please get as close to the mic as you can. Thank you. And we'll start for roll call. Please say here when you hear your name. Yesenia Garcia. Ms. Guerrero, myself. Yolanda Leon, here. Rogelio Martinez, here. Stephanie Perez, here. Jonathan Ramirez, here. Corina Rodriguez, here. Nicolas Romero Gonzalez, here. German Bars, here. Jorge Santos, here. Now we'll get comments from the public, general public. Would you like to make a comment? Please give a card to the secretary. You'll have 2 minutes to speak. I don't think we have any comments from the public. Go ahead. So we'll go to the agenda article number 3. A summary of what's been going on with the investigations. It will be presented by Justin Bates.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Justin Bates. I'm a deputy county executive for the county of San Mateo. I'm very pleased to be with you all tonight. I really wish I could do my presentation in Spanish, but unfortunately I cannot, so I'm not able to. So thank you for your patience. Today I'm here to talk to the Commission about the Farm Worker Housing Compliance Task Force. This is, I think, the 5th community meeting we had updating folks about the work of the task force, and I recognize a lot of faces in the audience, but this is our first time here with the Farm Worker Advisory Commission. I'm very pleased to be with you all. We actually tried to come here in the summer, but we unfortunately had some reschedulings, but I'm glad to be finally here. The task force, I just want to start with some quick background so everybody has the same context. The task force was created earlier this year in the wake of the tragic and terrible shootings at 2 farms in Paso Bay. And one of the things to come out of that shooting was the identification that the 2 farms had housing for farm workers on those farms that were really not appropriate. They did not meet minimum habitability standards. And in particular, every resident of San Mateo County should have a safe and healthy place to live. And so from that tragic shooting, we created the task force with the purpose of identifying and inspecting all farm worker housing on agricultural lands in San Mateo County. Now we call it a task force because it brought together inspectors and enforcement staff from multiple county agencies. And we all work together, and I'm one of the folks who helps oversee and coordinate that work among these different groups. And the job of the task force, like I said, is to identify and inspect all the housing for farm workers on agricultural lands. And when we do that, what we're looking for is to ensure that all housing units have minimum habitability standards. So we're not inspecting for the entirety of the building code. We're not looking at sort of, is everything permitted? We're looking at basic habitability standards, things like safe drinking water, basic fire safety, smoke detectors, fire extinguishers, safe exit in case of emergency, safe electrical systems, basic structural safety. These kind of, and then an important one too is appropriate waste disposal. The sewer and the septic system, if it appropriate, is getting moved into the hazardous waste. So these are the standards that the task force has applied. We started our work in the spring, and the first thing we had to do was just identify all the farms that actually had housing. And we didn't actually know all the farms in the county. It may surprise you to know that we didn't have a list of all the farms. We don't regulate all the farms in that way. So the first thing we had to do was send a survey to everybody who owned agricultural land to identify what were the operations, what their housing. So there was a whole effort to collect a list. We've ultimately resulted in a list of a little over 100 of what we think are the actual operations that have or that could have housing in the county. And that's the list we're going with to evaluate and inspect the housing units. We got started for a few months, and once we got about 30% of the way through, you may have heard that over the summer there was a lot of concern in the community, particularly among farm operators and owners. About our inspections, there was a feeling that maybe the inspection teams were going beyond our legal authority in the inspection. There was a lot of confusion among the operator community that felt that they didn't know what to expect in the inspections. And so for a couple of weeks, we had some community meetings with the farm operators. We allowed people to postpone the inspections that had been scheduled during that time. We heard feedback from the operators. A lot of concern about the communications from the county not being clear enough on what the inspections were. And so after that, we created an information sheet that now every property owner gets before the inspection starts, laying out what the rights are of the property owner, what to expect in the inspection. We've modified some of our communications, and we got started with inspections again, and I committed to personally attending some of the inspections to make sure that our inspection teams were conducting the inspections in accordance with the parameters we had set. So the inspection got started again in September, and so now we're all kind of caught up. That was all by way of the background, and I wanted to give you some statistics and some information about where we are in the inspection process. At this point, we've evaluated 52 properties, which we think is roughly 50% or so of all the properties that we have to inspect. We have inspected 110 or evaluated 110 housing units. 90 of those units were occupied by farm workers, as best as we could identify. And there were 268 farm workers in these 90 units. Now, we use the term unit just to mean a housing unit. It could be a trailer, could be mobile home, could be a triplex that has multiple dwelling units. So it doesn't mean one like living quarters. It could be multiple quarters in one unit. But so the term unit is a range, but it's 258 farm workers that we've identified so far that live in these units. Now, not all of these units had any corrective action that needed to be done. And I should know when our team identifies some corrective work that needs to be done, we are trying to be as flexible as possible in order to address those corrections, because we're trying to minimize the number and amount of displacements that might happen. So we try to work with the operators on practical ways they can address these health and safety issues. We have, of the inspections that we've done, about 30% have needed corrective action. And when there's corrective action needed, the property owner gets a letter identifying what our team has found and identifying potential solutions for that work. That work is then proceeding, and we will then go back and confirm that the corrective work has been done and those units are meet those minimum safety standards again. As I mentioned, one of the key considerations here was trying to minimize the amount of displacement, the amount of folks might lose their homes because they're not safe to live in. Now, one way that could happen is if our inspectors identify housing that is so unsafe or so dangerous that they determine that no one can continue living there. And in that case, they do an order called a red tag order, meaning nobody can live. Again, we recognize how disruptive that would be, and we're trying to minimize that as much as possible. And to date, we have not had a single, the task force has not made a single red tag order. We have had one situation where we identified corrective action needed on a property. And the owner, instead of making those corrections, decided to evict the tenants. Now, this owner was not an active farm operator, and these tenants were not farm workers on that farm. And I suppose he just decided he didn't want to be in the landlord business anymore, evicted those households. Again, something we're trying to avoid, but it's within his legal rights to do. What happened in that situation, as I'm sure folks may be interested to know, is we immediately connected those families, there were 3 households, with our core agency in the area, in this case it was Codified Hope, provided a lot of support and assistance in the short term, the immediate term. Those families were ultimately able to be placed somewhere else and found new housing in another location. The county also enforced the red tag ordinance that we have in this case. Because these folks were evicted through no fault of their own, under the county's law, they are entitled to relocation payment from the landlord. And so those families also received a cash payment of 3 months market rate rent from the landlord to help with relocation costs. So that we do consider that a displacement, and that's something we were trying to avoid, but those families were displaced, but good way have found housing that's safe and healthy to live in. So what's next? We have to finish these inspections. Hard work to estimate exactly how much longer it will take. We say 50% of the properties, but not all inspections and properties are the same. Some are much more involved, some are more complicated, some are more straightforward. We hope to finish them early in the new year. And from that, we'll have learned a few things. Certainly, we'll have, we hope, improve the safety and health of farm worker housing that we've identified that is lacking. And then also we'll have a much better idea of the condition and the amount and the type of farm worker housing on agricultural lands. Something we're learning that some of you may already know, right, is that there's a lot of units being rented out on our agricultural lands that actually is not for farm workers. Farmers don't live there, other folks are living there. And we're learning the types of housing there is. We're getting a sense of how much of it is mobile homes, how much of it is converted, more permanent structures, how much of it is trailer type of homes. And so we'll have a better sense of the picture of farm worker housing on farms. And from that, we'll then get to the longer and the more involved question, which is what's next? How, there's a lot of folks in, I think, the farm operator community, I think in the farm worker community and the community more generally, and we've heard it, it would be great if it was easier to build quality farm worker housing in the county. And what can the county do to help facilitate that? Whether it's, are there ways we can change the way our building and planning regulations work? Are there opportunities for us to advocate for changes in the law that might make it easier to construct quality farm worker housing in the county here? So there's a longer question of how all these units can be legalized, as well as developing new units, and that's the next step of this process. Sort of beyond the task force. The task force is largely an inspection and enforcement force, but we are going to be engaging in those that longer term discussion of how we help facilitate easier construction of quality farm labor housing. And when the time comes, I'll be happy to come back to the Farm Worker Advisory Commission to report with you all on proposals that we are developing and to get your input and feedback on those. And with that, I will stop there and happy to take any questions.
Listen, for the homes that you guys will yellow on, is there a set time when what needs to be fixed to be fixed, or is that something that you're still working on figuring out, working with the farm owners?
Yeah, so on the one where we're requiring corrective action that you're talking about, it's a very case by case basis for what's the time frame. We do set out a time frame. If it is, it's a balancing of the issue and the risk and the health issue with the complexities of the solution. And so sometimes we've identified 30 days, sometimes 90 days, sometimes there are septic issues that might take longer to fix and they're not an immediate risk. There's other things like fire extinguishers and fire alarms that are much easier fixes that we would expect to happen in short order. So it varies, and we try to pick a time frame that is workable, but also acknowledges the risk presented by the condition. And then we are in the process of following up and making sure that corrective work is done.
Bien, más a los comisionados tienen alguna pregunta.
Yeah, you mentioned that you were about 30% of the way completed when you had to stop, right? Or you've done 30 inspections. I wasn't super clear. But of the ones you did complete, do you know the breakdown of like which ones were, if you happen to know, which ones were in the Pescadero area versus which were in Half Moon Bay area?
That is a great question. Thank you. I don't have that regional breakdown. We are working on having a GIS layer on our data so we can start identifying locations. I don't have that. I will tell you our strategy was, it was a mix that we didn't want to start in one place and not in the other place after. So we've been going sort of, Half Bay area and then South County, bouncing back and forth, but then we try to like cluster the inspections for efficiency. We've been trying to do inspections in both areas at the same time.
¿Algún comentario del público? Sí tenemos algunas agendas. Tenemos un comentario público de Joan.
We have a comment. If you can come forward, please.
Hello, and I'll go ahead and ask my question in English. My question is, could you detail a little bit more about the water testing that you're doing on farms? Just because a few of the anecdotes I've received is that it is really easy for somebody to, for example, if they ask to test the water, that they can give you clean water for you to test. So if you just give me a little bit more details about how you're ensuring that you guys are testing the water properly to ensure that there's not an easy way for them to do a quick fix or to give you water that is clean and not the water that's actually coming out of the pipe. Thank you.
So I'm happy to answer that question to the public. Thank you for the question. So, can you hear me? Okay. So, as I mentioned, testing water and making sure there's potable water at each site is part of what our environmental health inspectors do. And my understanding of their general practice, and certainly what I have observed myself when I was there, is that our inspectors take the sample. We don't take a sample from the property owner. They go and take a sample from the faucet. I've seen a situation where they couldn't get it and they were just going to come back at another time. And I can't remember why it wasn't acceptable at that time, but they were going to come back and take a sample themselves. They were not going to take a sample from the property owner. So I haven't seen that with my own eyes, and it was that would happen, and that's not my understanding of the standard practice of our environmental health inspectors.
There's no more questions. Ahora pasaremos al tema número 4 de la agenda.
So now we'll talk to article number 4 in the agenda regarding unincorporated areas in the county of San Mateo, and also presented by Dustin.
I wanted to just provide a very quick update on our minimum wage ordinance. I imagine in a prior meeting you all have received hopefully an update, but as you may know, last year, the Board of Supervisors approved a minimum wage specifically for San Mateo County. And part of it is it increases every year pursuant to a formula, essentially, change the cost of living. So effective January 1st, the minimum wage will be increasing by 56 cents to $17.06. And that's effective January 1st. It applies to all employers in the unincorporated area. It is a wage that applies to all employees, regardless of immigration status, regardless of sector you work in. That is the minimum wage in unincorporated San Mateo County. Our minimum wage, like other minimum wages across the state, is enforced by the State Division of Labor Standards and Enforcement. So if there is any employer in unincorporated county who's not paying that wage, they are subject to enforcement from the state and also from lawsuit from employees. There has been we have distributed, I believe we even have them here, a kind of flyer that employers are supposed to be able to get. I think so they have the information, and that employees have the information that is available on the website, and we're also distributing that through our channels to get to all employers in the appropriate area. But that, I'm happy to answer any questions that the committee has.
¿Hay alguna pregunta de los comisionados?
Does someone have a question for the commissioner?
You explain the formula for the increase in more detail and whether it goes on indefinitely or.
Yeah. So it is the lesser of 3.5%. Or. All right. So it's the lesser of 3.5% for last year's increase. But you know what? I don't think I have the right information here. I believe it's CPI, and I think I have it written down incorrectly on this. I apologize. I will get you that information. I believe it's CPI, and we have it published on our website, and I think I have the wrong thing on my sheet, so I apologize for that. But I'll get you that information.
¿Algún comentario del público?
Si alguien tiene algún comentario del público, por favor traiga al abogado. Y tenga 2 minutos, por favor. No sé qué más comentario público.
I think you just said, and you said now it's 1706.
1706, and I believe we have the flyers out at the front desk.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Pasaremos al tema número 5 de la
So now
agenda.
we'll go to article number 5 in the agenda, the County of San Mateo. I apologize, there's a lot of echo, did not understand the last portion of that.
Okay, Shruti, you guys begin speaking. You're ready.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to be here today. I wanted to introduce myself. I am new to Department of Emergency Management. I am the director for the County of San Mateo. Just want to talk a little bit about what our mission is, what we are thinking about for winter preparedness, and some personal preparedness as well. Next slide. Our mission is to advance community resilience through a proactive and comprehensive approach to emergency management involving the whole community in every phase of the disaster, including preparedness, mitigation, response, and recovery. Next slide. Few of our responsibilities are coordinating countywide preparedness, response, and recovery services, overseeing resource management during disasters, operating county's alert and warning systems, and providing training programs and emergency preparedness exercises. Next slide. So the winter storms hit us hard throughout the county, and there's a lot of steps that we at the County of San Mateo have taken. Department of Emergency Management has come together with other county department heads to prepare for winter storms that we are anticipating this year. We've conducted an inventory of all of the care and shelter trailers, which would be used for mass care or evacuation shelter or evacuation locations. We've also worked with HSA, who has created an exercise and a training for the temporary evacuation point in Pescadero. As a county, we've also deployed sandbags that you can find now in Half Moon Bay, Princeton, La Honda, and Pescadero. Department of Public Works has been working for the last year, reinforcing and repairing roads and also cleaning up debris to prevent future flooding issues. And Emergency Medical Services is prepared to augment any staffing, including ambulances, on the coast side during a storm. Next slide. Another important thing that has happened since last year has been the Ag ID program. This program is a standard program for owners and managers of livestock, allowing them to access areas they wouldn't normally have access to during emergencies, to care for animals and to support emergency personnel as well. Next slide. It's really important as we prepare for the upcoming storm season to have an emergency plan. What this includes is a plan where you know where you are going to meet up with family and other key relatives in case of an emergency, contact information for your family members and emergency services. It also includes building an emergency kit. The kit should include food that doesn't spoil, water, first aid supplies, medications, and other essential items, including items for a pet. Another key preparedness thing everyone can do is basically have the information ahead of time, such as signing up for our SMC alert platform, which I'll talk about later, but also having a weather radio that will also be important in knowing when an emergency strikes and having that communication with your local government or your law enforcement or fire. Creating a communication plan is important. This means that you know when and how you meet with your family if your cell phones do not work, or if there's other communication gaps. Next slide. We have a couple of emergency systems. One is SMC Alert. This is something all of you can sign up for, and alerts can be received through email, text message, or voice message. We have this in English, Spanish, Chinese simplified, Russian, Filipino, and Arabic. Another software that we use is called Genesis Protect. This software is used by emergency management officials to give you real-time updates during an evacuation. Genesis Protect also allows officials to designate a temporary evacuation point. Tsunami sirens along the coast also provide an early warning system. There are 8 sirens that are tested monthly by DEM and can be triggered remotely in the event of tsunami. Next slide. I want you all to take a moment and sign up for SMC Alert now. You can use your phone to sign up using the QR code. We'll keep the slide up for another few seconds. Next slide. Next slide. I'm here to answer any questions. Thank you so much for your time, and I strongly encourage you to prepare for the upcoming storm season.
I have a question. Will you guys do any kind of training with the farm workers? Your presentation was great. It has a lot of information, but I think it also has a lot of information for us to soak in. So I'm just wondering if you do anything in person or if you work with any agencies that could distribute the information to the farm workers. I know during the storms at times because of, especially in Casadero, because of the reception, they could sign up to the alerts, but not necessarily get them on time. So it is very important to make sure that there's others around them that can alert them to the emergency.
Yeah, so I think we will be hosting at least one event on the coast side that farm workers will be invited to. We're still figuring out the dates because the more accurate weather briefing is going to come after mid-November. So we're waiting for that to understand the weather patterns and to actually have that event.
Are you going to be able to provide any kind of emergency kits for the farm workers?
We can look into it and get back to you.
¿Alguna vez ustedes tienen alguna otra pregunta de los comisionados?
Anybody else have a question? I have a question.
I have a question. You mentioned that the Department of Public Works is working on repairing roads. Last January, during the winter storms in Pescadero, one of the roads that people use to get out of town when the main road is flooded is Stage Road. And I don't think anything, as far as I know, is being repaired there. Do you happen to know any update for Stage Road?
Yeah, so I'm not sure exactly on which roads have been worked on. I know that on some of the roads on the coast side are owned by Caltrans or other agencies. I can get that information back to you about what roads or what specific things that our DPW staff have done. I think one of the things we have to recognize is that we're having more and more events in areas that need a lot of changes. For example, an event that happened last year was an event that would usually occur once in 10, 20, 30, 40 years, which does inundate our system, and our infrastructure is not built for that. So I think there are a lot of different pieces of the puzzle, and you know, the county is working towards the longer term plan to update infrastructure, to learn about how climate change affects us. There's, I think emergency preparedness is one of the big Measure K funding opportunities that has also been put out recently as well.
¿Alguna otra pregunta? ¿O alguna pregunta del público?
One question.
¿Hay algún comentario del público?
Questions from the public?
Thank you very much for your presentation. Pasaremos al tema número 6, presentación de Thrive Alliance, presentado por Ana Miscolta, directora
Now we have a
de
presentation by Ana Historia
Comunitaria, y Yajaira Ortega, gestora de política y
and Ala Bella Historia.
Hello, everyone. May I share my screen? Oh, there we go. They're sharing their screen.
I can share it. You can share your screen if you like. Are you able to share your screen?
I would love if you share the screen. That would be really helpful. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ana Miscolta. I'm here with my colleague Yajaira Ortega. We are both from Thrive Alliance of nonprofits for San Mateo County. We are a nonprofit. Next slide, please. I'm also here with my son. So Thrive Alliance's mission is to promote and support the nonprofit sector. We work primarily with nonprofits, with community-based organizations. Our ultimate goal is to improve outcomes for all San Mateo County residents through supporting nonprofits. We do this primarily through policy and advocacy, cross-sector collaboration, and nonprofit capacity building. Next slide, please. So we actually do a lot of work, but today we are going to focus on just a few that we think might be of most interest to this group. We will be talking about our Racial Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Hub, or we call it our READY Hub. We'll be talking about our upcoming Racial Justice Summit, which is next week. We'll talk about our Translation Hub, which is a service we offer, outreach that we will be supporting for the upcoming 2024 elections, as well as the work we do around disaster risk reduction, which we call Community Organizations Active in Disaster. And with that, I will hand it over to my colleague Yahaira to go into the Ready Hub.
Okay. Next slide, please. Good evening and buenas tardes a todos. My name is Yahaira and I'm here with Ana. Thank you so much for making the time to invite us to your meeting. We'd love to tell you about all the efforts that we have and opportunities. I know that this might be a lot of information, but if you have any questions, we have our contact email at the end of this, and feel free to contact either of us for all the information that we provided today. So you might be wondering why we're all here, and I hope to share with you some of the resources that may be available to you and your community members. I would love to tell you about how we started our journey with racial justice. So after the 2020, we got together with our sister organization from Santa Clara County and created this hub. And as Anna mentioned, the nonprofit Ready Hub, which stands for Racial Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion, also known as the Ready Hub, is a joint effort between Silicon Valley Council of Nonprofits and Thrive Alliance. It's an initiative to integrate racial equity, diversity, and inclusion into the nonprofit community in Santa Clara and San Mateo counties.
Slow down a little bit so our interpreters can catch up. Thank you.
Yes. As part of our commitment to live out our promises made in the nonprofit Racial Equity Pledge, which you can check out on our website, we commit and take action to address systemic racism, discrimination, and inequities in our communities and organizations. Next slide, please. As I mentioned earlier, if you're interested in finding out more information about what kind of resources we have and may be available to you, please visit our nonprofit Ready Hub resource page. You can scan the QR code on the slides and it'll take you directly there. This resource page offers various tools, guides, and research, and more for nonprofits and community members who want easy access to content relevant and helpful to their own racial justice journey. Okay, next slide. The last way we continue to show our commitment is through hosting our annual nonprofit Racial Justice Summit, which you all are invited to. This year's summit's theme is Partnership and Collective Responsibility. The summit brings together a diverse spectrum of change makers, including nonprofit leaders, staff, board members, along with cross-sector partners, such as government and philanthropy, to champion racial justice and equity. We are thrilled to have Angela Glover Blackwell, who founded Policy Link, as our keynote speaker, and she will moderate a panel with county equity officers and local nonprofits. If you're interested in joining us on November 15th, please sign up as soon as possible. We have limited space. Next slide, please. Okay. Another opportunity I would love to tell you is we have made a commitment to provide free language access to all San Mateo County nonprofits. If you work in the nonprofit sector and would like to offer your services and programs in other languages, please connect with me. We will have our contact information at the end of the presentation. You can also scan the QR code to find out more information, and we're currently taking requests for 2024. Okay, next slide. Okay, and thank you for being so patient with me. I know I have a lot of information, and if you have any questions, please let me know. The last thing I would love to tell you all about, which you may already know, is that the March primary election is around the corner. The election is on March 5th. Oh, can we go back one second? Thank you. The election is on March 5th, and what people don't realize is that ballots will be mailed out on February 6th. That means we have about 3 months to educate, register, and engage voters to make a difference in the next election. Our purpose at Thrive is to create spaces where community can find accurate information on the next election. If you're interested in learning more about the next election and would like to meet others doing voter engagement, please join us at our next Voter Education and Outreach Advisory Committee meeting on Wednesday, December 6th, 9:30 to 11 a.m. on Zoom. Another way you can get up-to-date information is to visit smcvote.gov. Okay, last slide. There we go. Thank you. Before I hand it over to my colleague, I want to tell you about an amazing resource we have. If you are a community member or a local nonprofit who is interested in educating your community about the next election, please request an election education toolkit from us. Essentially what this is, it is a kit that has all the material listed on this slide. For example, we have a trifold brochure with all necessary information, stickers, pledge cards, FAQ pages, bookmarks, voter registration forms, and you will also be offered a training on how to use any and all of these materials on January 17th of next year. And of course, if you want to learn more or are interested in this, please get in contact with me. We're looking for people who would like a toolkit. And I'll hand it over to Anna. Thank you.
Thank you, Yahaira. Next slide, please. I am going to talk a little bit about the work we do with disaster risk reduction. Thrive leads the community organizations active in disaster for San Mateo County. We call this the COAD. Essentially, a COAD is a network of lots of different types of organizations that work together. They talk to each other, they share resources with the common goal of reducing community risk to disasters, responding faster, responding better. So a lot of what we do is share resources. I kind of already said this in my first sentence, but we really try to avoid doing the same thing. And this is meant to just create positive, better outcomes for the community. Next slide. So what we do during disasters is focused on response and recovery. A lot of what we did during the storms last year included getting a lot of our partners together in meeting spaces. We did quite rapid translation into Spanish for immediate safety messaging. And we would put this information on our website, provide it to community-based organizations. We coordinated quite a bit with 211 to make sure that their awareness of resources was up to date. And we also coordinated with volunteers. When the storms passed, but people were still left with a lot of impacts, we continued to try to coordinate nonprofits to send them to the Disaster Recovery Center so that community members could simultaneously access their services in addition to FEMA's, Cal OES's services as well. At this point in time, we were able to translate recovery resources into several more languages. Off the top of my head, we did Spanish, Tagalog, Mandarin, and of course English. And we also did at least one Tongan translation as well, with the intent of making recovery resources more accessible, not just linguistically accessible, but breaking down jargon, breaking down technical information, and making recovery resources as accessible as possible. And finally, we did put on community-facing trainings led through a partner organization so that people, and particularly Spanish speakers, could better understand the FEMA application process and the appeals process for denied applications. Next slide, please. So when there are blue skies, when we don't have an active disaster, we are getting our partner organizations together for monthly meetings. We have different topics that we talk about every month. Most recently, it has been earthquakes. Soon we will be talking about flood insurance and the difference between homeowners and renters insurance policies and flood insurance. We offer trainings. This year, we will have at least 2 trainings on the coast, one in Half Moon Bay and one in Pescadero, that focus on continuity of operations for farmers and for small businesses. So please keep a lookout for those, probably early next year. You may see some flyers around for those. We do some research and advocacy primarily around earthquake risk and seismic retrofit. We also in our earthquake work, we have done secure your space pilots. So this means that really trying to attach furniture to walls so that they don't fall over onto you if there's strong shaking. This is really important for everyone, but this is super important for households with children and for older adults, for folks who have a harder time doing duck cover and hold rapidly enough. So we did a secure your space pilot where we got all of the right furniture straps, and we went into daycares and nonprofits and had volunteers install them. And we are still doing some outreach and campaigning just around awareness of the importance of doing that. And we have done some direct community outreach and education at community fairs in the past and hope to expand that a little bit in coming years. Next slide. Finally, this is my last announcement. We recently launched a map, the Community and Disaster Services in San Mateo County. The purpose of this map is to understand and have an awareness of all of the different service providers that there are in the county, specifically related to those that help reduce our community risk. So that could be reducing everyday risk, reducing social vulnerability, but it could also be very specific disaster organizations. So this is what our database is right now. We're still building it out. I encourage everyone to take a look at the map, use the search function, use the filter functions, explore it. And if it feels like something is missing, tell us and we will fix it. And you can do that by clicking the Contact Us button at the top of the page. So that QR code in the corner will take you to the map. And please do let us know if you have any feedback. I hope that it's useful for folks. All right, next slide. All right, with that, this is our contact information if you would like to get in touch either about any of the resources you heard about today. Both of our emails are there, and this QR code will take you to our website where you can learn more about Thrive Alliance and sign up for newsletters on specific programs if you're interested. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. That was a lot of information. Do you have any transportation if any of the farm workers wanted to attend the Justice Summit? Or is that something that they would have to figure out on their own? And then exactly have interpretation in different languages?
Hi. We still have space available, and so far none of the attendees has requested interpretation, but we can offer interpretation. I just need to know as soon as possible. If you're interested in coming, I can offer interpretation for your event. We don't have any lined up because people haven't requested, but if you are interested in coming, I can coordinate that. Just let me know as soon as possible.
Is there an opportunity to also coordinate transportation? Some of the farm workers don't drive or don't drive beyond the boundaries of where they live.
That is a great question. Why don't you get in contact with me and I can figure that out. We're not coordinating transportation at the moment. We're asking folks to come to EPA Ravenswood Shopping Center, and then we have a shuttle service directly to the EPA Center. But if you can send me an email, I can learn more about your needs, and I'd be happy to try to figure something out.
Then I just going to ask another request, maybe come back later to talk to us more about elections. I know for some of us have family members who have the right to vote and others who don't. But I think this is an important election where if you don't have that right to vote, you can help educate your family so they can raise their voice for you. So maybe if we can find time a little later, maybe so that we can have you here in front of us and maybe have the opportunity to ask you more questions. Any other questions from the commissioners?
If I may respond, I would love to join you in person. That training that I was talking about January 17th, we're training folks on how to use the toolkit. We can brainstorm about how I can give that in person and maybe have interpretation as well. If you all have the appetite for something like that, I'd be excited to have that opportunity.
¿Alguna otra pregunta de los comisionados? ¿Algún comentario del público?
No tenemos comentarios del público.
Thank you.
Any comments from the public? No comments from the public.
Thank you.
Pasaremos al tema número 8.
Now we'll go to item number 8.
Sí, perdón, ya estoy acordando. Pasaremos al tema número 7, presentación.
Now, article number 7, presentation by Joanne Samaran.
Okay. Ok, así que lo que les voy a compartir hoy ya ya les pasé a todos el folleto. Y
I give everyone the brochure.
Creamos este folleto en fuente en colaboración con la organización Centro Legal de la Raza. Y también quiero reconocer que este folleto fue diseñado e implementado por mi colega Daniel.
It was designed by my colleague. Great notes and good design. I apologize, echo is very bad with this speaker. They are an agency who works with Latino groups and other groups, celebrating the rights of the farm workers. Next slide, please. So you can see some samples that we're looking at.
Tenemos un corto número de folletos esta vez porque como nos dijo Justin, está cambiando.
Just like Justin said,
en enero, así que
minimum wage is changing in January.
estaremos imprimiendo nuevos folletos con los nuevos, el nuevo mínimo.
We'll print new information with the new minimum wage.
Tratamos de poner mucha de la información básica y también, por ejemplo,
We'll try to
pago de horas extras,
include lots of basic information, overtime, break time.
Sí, perdón. Y también puedes seguir a la próxima página.
Next slide.
Aquí tenemos algunas de esas fechas con la implementación.
Here are some dates
De los nuevos salarios.
with information of new salary.
Cuando empezamos este proyecto, llevamos la información a nuestro grupo de Del Campo al Cambio.
We took the information to our group
Esta información y les preguntamos
and we handed out
qué más información quieren tener.
pages of the information and asked the questions what's working, what's not, and we took everything in consideration to create this package of information. Here, this page, we have more information, and there's a place where we have a Q&A area. One of the things that we talk about when we talk to farm workers, it's important
un papel que tiene más conversación. Por ejemplo, si alguien te pregunta una pregunta, y puedes pasar a la otra página, por favor, perdón.
Sorry, next slide, thank you.
Otra página.
Next slide.
Aquí. Cuando tenemos una parte donde tenemos preguntas y respuestas,
There's an area with Q&A. This is a easier way to understand some of this information. This booklet is really full of information, but we're hoping to give enough information and talk about different topics, especially when we talk to lawyers. We couldn't limit the information, make it too short, because we wanted everyone to have the important information. We wanted to have all the information included. Everything was very important. Any questions? This is specifically for San Mateo County. But I think you can share with other counties. And also in rural areas and no incorporated areas. Any other questions? Any comments from the public?
Yeah, all in a row.
Sí, so Half Bay tiene, los dos creo que tiene su propio salario mínimo.
Half
Entonces,
Moon Bay has its own minimum wage. That falls in the areas, non-incorporated areas.
creo que Emma tiene una pregunta.
Any other questions?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, this is Emma Gonzalez with the Office of Community Affairs. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. I just wanted to bring to the attention of the presenter that I believe on your slide 2. I just wanted to bring to the attention that the minimum hourly wage is changing, but it's incorrect on the slide. So where it says 1796. Slide 2. And January 24, and the asterisk and the smaller print at the bottom.
Oh, you're right, that is true. It's a good thing that this is a short print and we're doing a reprint very short.
I do think it's correct in the quick of the booklet. Yeah, it says 1706.
We could talk about that after. I just kind of wanted to highlight that one. Thank you.
Yeah, we have to double check our Spanish version.
We do have a public comment. You can come up to the podium, please. Okay.
Thank you very much. This is just a very short comment. My name is Tammy Kim and I'm the Director of Community Engagement and Public Policy at Guante. I worked with Joanne, and again, with the Central Legal to work on this booklet. And my comment is that, we are also planning to distribute this booklet with the local farm operators and owners, employers, because we have been informed by the California State Agency that one of the most common reasons cited, or the things provided by some of the employers who sometimes don't follow this laws is that they simply don't know or they're not aware of. So we have made a commitment that, with this booklet, we're gonna do pretty comprehensive outreach and make sure that this information will not only be shared with the farm workers and but the farm owners as well. So if they have any questions, they can also reach out to us and we'd be happy to connect with them, with the lawyers who have worked on this. That's all. Thank you for your time. Thank you. Pasaremos al, gracias, Joan, perdón.
Thank you, Joanne. I'm sorry.
Pasaremos al tema número 8
Now we'll go to item number 8.
del comité ad hoc de alcance y educación.
Update on the committee of outreach.
Yo soy Stephanie y Judith y Jonathan, somos parte de este comité ad hoc.
So we're part of this committee. We had a presentation October 25th. And we had around 15 to 20 people who attended. We appreciate their assistance. It was a success. And they gave a very complete presentation, and a lot of the information is inside this booklet. And we have a second part in workshops, and we would like to do in Pescadero. We'll try to work together to see how we can do this in order to give correct information. We had great success, and perhaps we'll hold another workshop. But I think that's the only comment I have. Any questions for the commissioners? Any comments from the public? Now, article number 9. Equitable healthcare, I believe. I apologize, sound is not great. We had a meeting October 18th through the health department. And with the director, I believe, who's in charge of AIDS programs in San Mateo. It was a very good meeting. We started thanking them for coming up with the ACE program and for having it for such a long time. A lot of people have benefited from that program. And the second thing, we were asking to increase the limits, the wage minimum. And unfortunately, they were telling us to wait for 2 years to give them time to evaluate and to see what the state was doing to see if the state would include certain groups of people. So our response was we didn't want to wait that long. It was too long. And with the low wages current, they can do whatever they can. We try to go into different programs, so people are losing work hours willingly in order to qualify for certain programs. They'd rather be off for 1 or 2 days in order to qualify for certain programs. And I'm glad they deserve this coverage. But it's terrible that we know that is what's taking place. And it has been going on for a while. I'm wondering if someone can evaluate. And we said that we would bring this information to this group and also in smaller groups because we're faster to evaluate. And we can bring a list of the ones who didn't qualify and all the ones who did qualify. We understand it's difficult for people to be without pay and be on some sort of waiting list. We want to continue talking about what would be the best way to bring this information without putting people on the spot in a difficult situation. How do you say on the spot in Spanish? Okay. Any questions from the commissioners? I have a comment.
Y los trabajadores agrícolas, la condición de los trabajadores agrícolas que planteemos.
My apologies. It's very difficult to hear this gentleman's comments. The audio is very echo.
Cuando nos inscribimos, cuando el trabajo es más, es ahora, baja más de 8 horas, 5 días, 4 días. Después de febrero, marzo, aumenta drásticamente el horario de trabajo. Ya está. Es necesario un documento generalizado parte de la comisión.
Again, my apologies. The audio is not great. He's incredibly, his audio is very broken.
Es bajo el salario, las horas, ¿cómo te aumenta? Y ahí es donde te aumenta la ganancia. Entonces, realmente para mí, tener seguridad médica es esencial.
I believe he's speaking about medical insurance, perhaps.
Cuando
Important to have.
estás enfermo, ni todo el dinero del mundo te sirve. Entonces, es importante que si van a contratar a alguien para que evalúe.
My apologies. I can only hear every fifth word.
Se van a perder, creo que se van a perder muchos beneficios para muchos trabajadores agrícolas que van llegando, ya estamos. Sí, es importante que se tomen en cuenta. Nosotros hacemos una declaración. Gracias.
Gracias, Nicolás. Creo que el supervisor Miller va a organizar una junta con algunos de los trabajadores del campo y pues hay que asegurarnos de estar presente.
So there's a meeting with the supervisors. Also difficult to understand, I apologize.
También vemos, desafortunadamente, todas las semanas personas que no califican a un seguro médico. Eso que también es parte de la salud mental, afecta la salud mental de las personas cuando no tienen una cobertura de salud.
My apologies. Can I understand the gentleman speaking? Very poor quality in the audio. My apologies.
Porque tú también estás en el grupo, tú también vas a escuchar.
Gracias. ¿Algún comentario del público? Pasamos al el tema número 10, actualización.
Now, number 10.
So maybe I'll speak in English. We had a meeting with Marissa. Judith and I were able to attend recently, and she was able to share with us information, familiarity about how there is funding available if you like through the state and through the county in more creative ways. And she had shared some of that information with us, and we expressed an interest in learning more about those opportunities. housing that maybe is being built in Redwood City. But if we are able to, talk to people in authority and say, like, hey, there's all this money, can some of that go to building housing specifically for farm workers? More rural, there might be opportunities there. So that was kind of exciting, and I think we sort of left the door open to inviting her to speak to us about those opportunities more in the future. Nicholas wasn't with us, but perhaps if you give us an update on some of the meeting that he attended on Monday with Cambio. I expressed in the meeting my feeling that farm operators can benefit from greater support from the county in the permitting process. I know that for my business, personally, we've been able to submit plans for building housing recently, but only because we had support from the Peninsula Open Space Trust, where we're hoping to build the housing we lease from them. They actually had like a project manager that was that they hired to help us through that process. And I would advocate for the county providing more free of charge some staff or financial support for those that are wanting to build housing for farm workers, that they can provide consultancy that would allow people to jump through the hurdles that are necessary to be able to build housing.
No, just I walked away hearing John's concerns and needs for, I think in this situation there's two different parties that are involved, with the farm workers and the farmers, and I wish that we could find more help for farm owners like John who are willing to do the right thing. So we're gonna figure out how we can explore more and more about options that would also help individuals like John and other farm owners that are willing to do the right thing. Anyone else?
Any questions?
Nicholas is gonna do his report out on next item. No. So we'll do the report out that. ¿Algún comentario del público?
Questions from the public? Just to remind you.
Es opcional y si usted no tiene algo que informar, no necesitamos informar.
Apologies, audio is terrible. I know he's speaking about the end of the meeting.
Yo no pude estar en la reunión de Zoom con Larissa, con John, con Lee, por razones de que tuvimos una importante también reunión en Pescadero con Ray Mueller.
The gentleman speaking about an issue in Pescadero.
Nosotros tenemos la inquietud que el trabajador agrícola debe tener su propio hogar, su propia vivienda. Y le pedimos al señor Ray Mueller en esa reunión varias personas y varios compañeros de los que estamos aquí.
There seems to be a petition from several people
De los que hemos compartido el pan y la sal con las reuniones que hacemos cada mes del campo al cambio.
Again, my apologies. The audio is very poor quality.
¿Cuál le pedimos? Que reabriera el archivo de Big Hollow. Es un terreno del condado que fue destinado hace 10 años, más de 10 años, para viviendas dignas para los trabajadores agrícolas. El cual
Perhaps a request for
bloqueado
housing.
por unas especies de la fauna, de la flora y la fauna que se encuentran, que son algunos reptiles, ranas y culebras, el cual nosotros pues, vemos la posibilidad de que se reabra y que se haga ese proyecto, ya que el salario mínimo
So hopefully the project will come into completion. Minimum wage is not enough to pay for rent at home. These are farm workers outside of the apartment complexes. Talking about farm workers who have very low wages. We have other bills to pay. Children's needs, insurance, gas, etc. So we're not requesting a raise in the minimum wage, but we're want for the minimum wage to cover for basic necessities. First of all, is housing. It's important that the county may pay attention to this declaration that we made to Mr. Mueller. The urgent call also for children to drink from that contaminated water. It's not possible that it's happening in our time. Especially in San Mateo, is one of the most important counties from the United States and the world. First in the economy. So if there are any resources and the land and the possibility to do things better, we ask Mr. Ray Mueller to support us. We will not stop working hard in order to take this to completion. We're focusing in Pescadero to have clean water for school and to have fair housing for the workers who are not inside the farms, who pay for a very high rent. That is information of what was talked about in that meeting with Ms. Yolanda, Mr. Rogelio. And they're able to share what we experienced there. Thank you.
Yolanda, Rogelio, algo que gustaría sumar a lo que Nicolás ¿Comentó?
Would you like to add anything?
Creo que algún otro reporte. Yo ayer tuve la oportunidad de asistir al evento
I had the opportunity
para todos los
to
comisionados. Esperemos
go
que
to
el
some of the events in San Mateo,
próximo año y entonces
and I hope the commissioners will come next year, will come back next year.
a otros comisionados de otras comisiones.
And then have an opportunity to meet other commissioners from other commissions.
Aquí tenemos un reporte del distrito 3.
And I think we have another report.
Gracias de nuevo por su atención. Ya no lo terminamos.
Hi, thank you for your attention.
Les quiero nada más informar que nosotros en el distrito con el
That
supervisor
at the district with the supervisor, we're working really hard
abogar por las necesidades de nuestra comunidad vulnerable en
for the needs in the community of Half Moon Bay
de familias de campesinos, en las
and
familias
farm
de
workers' families
vivienda,
and families who are in need of housing,
estamos
who need
trabajando
better
en fijar una fecha
health care, and we're trying to find a date together with the county and the health department
para hablar del tema de salud y la calidad
to see when we can get together, talk about health,
esperando un poquito, pero es porque hemos tenido
health care,
en el calendario
and other issues. It's taken a while because we've had full calendars.
así que de las personas que están interesadas en hablar
So anybody who's interested in talking about
conmigo directamente,
healthcare issues, you can
no me alcanzan
communicate with me directly. If you're unable to reach me, please go to Rita or Judith, and they can contact me.
yo estoy disponible, me pueden mandar
But
un texto,
I'm available. You can always text me.
ofrecer mi tarjeta con contacto.
I can give you my business card.
Eso es para la futura reunión que tendremos sobre la
This is for a future meeting that we'll have
servicios de salud,
regarding
necesidades de servicios de salud. ¿Ok?
needs
El
as
segundo
far as
tema es
healthcare. And the second topic
estamos observando en el
that we
programa
continue to
cuáles son los espacios
observe
para ver dónde podrían haber viviendas,
spaces where other housing could be built. Supervisor's still working on that,
en un mes y en
and perhaps he
2
can
semanas,
come up with information in a
6
month,
semanas,
three weeks.
pero sí, seguimos observando esos
We
espacios
continue to look out for spaces. He's still working on that,
no terminan.
the housing
Otra cosa
topic.
también que si ustedes
Another thing,
preparación como para las lluvias y en esos
new
clima,
preparation for the rain and the harsh weather.
por la lluvia,
If you have any difficulties due to rain,
con
please
las oficinas de los servicios, por ejemplo, de Coseco Puente para recibir información primeramente, ya que están cerca,
communicate with. I wasn't able to understand.
por ejemplo, si me
Also, you may also come to my office
con alguien porque necesitan
if you need to communicate with someone
para proteger contra el agua,
to get sandbags to protect your property. You can also communicate, contact me, and I can refer you to the right person.
si alguien necesita pedir una cita, hable
If anybody needs to make an appointment, please contact me,
al supervisor directamente, hablen con el
and I can send a message directly to the supervisor.
el señor Nicolás. Nada más
And as far as what Mr. Nicolas said,
el supervisor
a
sí
little bit of information. The supervisor did go to the meeting October 13th
condado de San Diego,
in the county of San Diego. He drove down
son
Southern California to speak to the commissioners
postal,
in that area, in the coastal area,
español, y les comunicó la necesidad de tener agua limpia para los estudiantes en las escuelas.
and mention the topic of clean water for the
Así
students.
que eso es algo que estamos esperando
So we're waiting for that information,
próximo paso,
and we're waiting to hear what would be the next step
con esta organización y ya cuando tengamos más
with this
información.
organization. Once we have more information, we will let you know.
Otra cosa que quería mencionar es también el tema de lo que mencionó el señor Nicolás,
We also had a meeting with a group. There was a lot of messages communicated to us. So we're working on that as well. And so the supervisor will have a conversation with the group. So if you're whoever's part of that group, we'll continue having communication with the supervisor. And if you'd like to talk with me directly, please, we can chat after the meeting. Thank you. Thank you for everyone present and in Zoom. I wish you a happy Thanksgiving with your families. Thank you, everyone from the county that make this possible. We couldn't do it without you. It is 8:42, and this will conclude our meeting.